So look, at the end of the 7th, the White House came out and said something pretty big. They're talking about options to get their hands on Greenland. And yeah, that includes military options. So naturally, Greenland's back in the headlines again. Now, we've talked about this before on the show, done plenty of analysis. But here's the thing, what's happening right now tells us something different. America isn't just eyeing Greenland because of some far-off threat down the road. No, this is urgent. This is happening now. The situation's gotten hot. And let's be clear about something. This island isn't just some pretty piece of real estate that Americans think would be nice to have. It's not some bargaining chip for political games either. When you look at it from a military standpoint, pure military thinking, Greenland is basically the high ground for the whole nuclear deterrence situation up in the Arctic. And if you lose that high ground, America doesn't just get weaker. They end up in the worst possible spot for any nuclear power. They can't be sure anymore that they can protect themselves or keep command and control running when things go sideways. And that right there, that's why Trump said America needs Greenland. Not wants, needs. There's a huge difference. When you need something, you gotta have it no matter what. When you want something, well, you can live without it. Big difference. To really get this, you gotta stop thinking about flat maps and borders. That's not how strategic warfare works. Nuclear war doesn't care about lines on a map. It follows the curve of the Earth. It's about reaction times. It's about sensor networks. The whole system for deciding whether to intercept something, it's like a living machine that runs on seeing, hearing, and quick reflexes. Not just the missiles themselves. And in that machine, Greenland isn't some outpost on the edge. It's part of the brain, the central nervous system. That's how important it is. So here's what we know about Russia. They've put most of their nuclear stuff, the really important strategic assets, in one concentrated area, the Kola Peninsula and the waters around it. That's where the Northern Fleet sits. That's where the ballistic missile subs are. All the stuff that guarantees they can hit back if someone hits them first. That's what keeps nuclear deterrence alive. Now, when a missile, whether it's an ICBM from land or an SLBM from a sub, gets launched from over there toward America, what's the quickest route? Straight over the pole, right through the Arctic, right over Greenland. But here's what really matters. It's not just that missiles fly over Greenland. The really dangerous part, the part that's hardest to defend against, is the middle of the flight, when the warhead gets up really high and then starts the whole shell game. Real warheads mixed in with decoys, real signals buried in noise, warnings that might be tricks. That's when you don't just need to see what's coming. You need to understand what you're seeing. And here's the frustrating part for America. They can't just take out the Kola Peninsula. It's not that they don't have the firepower. They've got plenty. It's the way nuclear deterrence is set up. See, Kola isn't like a normal military target. The Russians built it specifically so it can't be knocked out quickly. It's a fortress. The sub-bases, the command centers, all the protection around it. None of that is designed to win a fight. It's designed to make sure nobody ever wants to start one. Because even if most of it gets destroyed, enough will survive to hit back. And that's all that matters for deterrence. There's this really cold logic to it. Russia doesn't need all their subs to survive. They just need America to never be completely sure they could wipe them all out. That little bit of doubt, that's what keeps everything stable. Sure, America could do serious damage to Kola if they really went for it. Long-range precision missiles, electronic warfare, the best anti-submarine tech in the world. But here's the problem. Any attack big enough to actually neutralize Kola, Russia's going to see that as a first strike trying to take away their ability to retaliate. And once one side thinks their retaliation capability is under threat, they don't wait around to see what happens next. They act right then. People get confused about this. They ask, America's so strong, why do they have to worry about cola? And the answer is, that's exactly how deterrence is supposed to work. Big powers are supposed to worry about each other. If one side could easily knock out the other's retaliation ability, deterrence falls apart. The stronger side would always be tempted to strike first. So both countries, America and Russia, they deliberately create these untouchable zones, places the other side can't deal with quickly or cleanly. Cola is one of those places. It's not a weakness for America. Actually, the fact that cola can't be taken out fast is what lets Americans sleep at night without worrying about a surprise attack. Deterrence works because both sides know it. Doesn't matter how good your first strike is, I'm still gonna hit you back. As long as everyone believes that, nobody starts a nuclear war. People call it a fragile balance, but it's also incredibly powerful. So since America can't and shouldn't try to destroy cola, what do instead? They focus on something else. See things early. Understand what they're seeing. React fast enough. And if the worst happens, keep the damage as low as possible. Basically, America accepts that cola exists, and instead of trying to blow it up, they try to control the space around it. The path those missiles would take. And guess what sits right on that path? Greenland. If America can't stop the threat at the source, they gotta control the route the threat takes. And Greenland is perfectly positioned for that. Better detection, better tracking, more time to make decisions. Does Greenland help America beat Russia? No, but it helps them not get caught off guard. It helps them keep command and control intact. And in the nuclear game, those two things are everything. There's another layer to this that people miss. A strategic attack isn't just about blowing up cities or military bases. It's about wrecking the other side's ability to think clearly and make good decisions in those few critical minutes. If you see something too late, or you can't tell what's real and what's fake, you're in trouble. Either you react too slow and lose the ability to command before you can even act, or you react wrong and things spiral out of control. In nuclear war, you don't get a second chance to learn from your mistakes. So what Greenland gives America isn't just a spot on the map. It's a viewing angle. It's the ability to cross-check information. One sensor might give you a fuzzy picture, but sensors from multiple angles, now you can confirm things. Filter out the noise. Figure out what's real and what's not. For anything coming over the North Pole, Greenland is one of the best angles you can get. But there's more. Greenland doesn't just help America see better, it buys them time. And in strategic military stuff, time is priceless. You can't get it back once it's gone. Russia picks the polar route partly because it squeezes America's reaction window. The tighter that window gets, the worse America's decisions get. The higher the chance they get caught blind. Greenland helps open that window back up a bit. Earlier warning, better tracking, and the big one, giving the command system a few extra seconds or even minutes. Enough to keep the decision makers in the loop. Enough to issue orders. Enough to actually respond. In this kind of warfare, an extra 60 to 90 seconds can be the difference between still being in command and going silent. Now, if it was just Russia, maybe America could handle it, manage the risk. But we're not living in that world anymore. The 21st century brought a new player. China showed up, and they didn't need to launch a single missile to make America's situation way more complicated. They did it through something colder, trade, leading to military positioning. The Arctic ice is melting. New shipping routes are opening up. Faster routes that don't go through choke points other countries control. Great for trade between China and Europe. But here's the thing. Wherever trade goes, military stuff follows. Naval activity, submarines, signal intelligence mapping the ocean floor. Blending in with civilian ships. Anytime you get a major trade route, you get strategic competition. Always been that way. Still is. And this is where Russia and China start working together, even without any formal alliance. No NATO-style treaty, no signed agreements, no joint battle plans. They just create something worse. They're operating at the same time in the same space. Russia's got the nuclear threat on the polar route. China's building up presence in the Arctic and North Atlantic, using commerce and protecting their interests as the excuse. What happens to America then? They get stretched thin. Got to split their surveillance, split their anti-sub capabilities, split their warning systems, and worst of all, split their focus. Their command brain has to watch two directions at once, one country facing two nuclear powers. Nobody wants to be in that spot. When you're fighting at that level, having to divide your attention is basically an attack all by itself. It slows down your decisions, makes mistakes more likely. So when people say attacking America would be easy, this is what they mean. Not because America is weak, because their enemies are making their time shorter, their certainty lower, and their whole nervous system stretched across too much space all at once. Greenland became a choke point because it sits right where two things America has to control meet up: the path of nuclear missiles and the gateway for shipping. That's where America can put their sensors together, build a clear picture of what's happening up north, shrink the gray zones, catch things earlier, and most important, make sure that when everything goes crazy, they still have the data to confirm what's happening, the time to give orders, and the ability to respond. Deterrence doesn't start with warheads. It starts with being able to see and trust what you're seeing. Lose that, and you're just hoping for the best. And this is what scares Washington the most. It's not that someone might invade Greenland the old-fashioned way. It's that the island turns into a gray zone, a place where outside influence can creep in, where defense upgrades get delayed, where legal fights tie everything up, where responsibility gets blurred, or just a place where control isn't solid enough for what a nuclear power needs. For most places, America can deal with some uncertainty. Greenland, if they see it as survival high ground, uncertainty isn't acceptable. A nuclear superpower can't run on maybe and hopefully. Those words don't work here. You need certainty. So now you see what Trump meant by need. Wanting something, you can negotiate. Needing something, that's about survival. No other choice. When Russia's holding Kola like a fortress, when the Arctic's opening up and pulling China into new strategic territory, when those two pressures together are squeezing America's warning time and jacking up uncertainty, that's when Greenland becomes something Washington sees as absolutely essential. To get rid of the uncertainty, to cut the risk, to add another layer of protection for the country. Put it in military terms. Greenland is where America turns nuclear deterrence from just willpower into an actual working system. It helps them see sooner, understand better, and give orders in time on the polar route. In a situation where Russia and China just have to push at the same time to overload America's awareness. We all know America's tried to get Greenland before. Public offers, private talks, trying to buy it. But so far, nothing's worked. Right now, actually getting sovereignty over Greenland, pretty much impossible. The legal and political barriers are too high. But that's exactly what makes Trump's recent comments so interesting. He's not really trying to convince Denmark or Greenland. He's trying to wake up the American public and get the strategic folks in Washington thinking. When Trump says you can stand on Greenland and see Russian and Chinese warships everywhere, that's not just talk. That's military language describing a security problem that's becoming very real for America. What he's really saying is this: that safety cushion America always had, it's disappearing. For most of the last century, Americans had geography on their side. Two huge oceans as buffers. Any major threat would take a while to reach them. Plenty of warning time. But up in the Arctic, especially around Greenland, those rules don't apply anymore. Space is compressed up there. Missiles come right overhead. Subs can hide under the ice. New shipping lanes are opening faster than anyone expected. The old security setup is being challenged. When Trump talks like this, he's using the language of operational planning. On that map, Russia's all over the northeast of Greenland. Northern Fleet, strategic subs, long-range bombers, regular patrols across the Arctic Ocean. Meanwhile, China's showing up more and more. They're not technically an Arctic country, but they're calling themselves a near-Arctic power. Science missions, infrastructure investments, icebreakers, commercial shipping, and naturally, the naval and submarine capability that comes along with protecting trade interests. For Americans, this feels new and scary. First time since the Cold War that the area near the continental U.S. is seeing two major rivals at once, in the same strategic direction. Not just the Russian bear anymore. Two wolves now, each doing their own thing, but together creating a pincer on America's awareness and reaction time. Russia's the direct nuclear threat, clear and structured. China's the soft threat, deep, coming in through economics first, then turning into strategic presence. In all this, Greenland's become the place where Americans can finally feel the threat isn't abstract anymore. It's right there, right at their door. This isn't about Europe. This isn't about some faraway Pacific situation. This is about America. Trump's taking something incredibly complicated: nuclear deterrence, Arctic shipping, submarines, missile paths, and turning it into something regular Americans can understand and feel. That's why he talks about enemy ships right in front of us. But here's the thing. Trump's not dumb enough to think tough talk will make Denmark hand over Greenland. What he's actually doing is reshaping how Americans think about their security. When people believe they're really being threatened by two major powers lurking nearby, the Arctic defense budget gets easier to pass. Expanding military presence, radar, sensors, bases, all that becomes less controversial, and the pressure on Denmark and Greenland builds up slowly but steadily. Now let's be clear about something. Not buying Greenland doesn't mean America fails strategically. Washington's real goal isn't putting their flag on the map. They need to actually control the Arctic security space. See early, track well, react fast. Block the openings Russia and China might use. These days, especially in places like Greenland, power doesn't always mean owning territory. Power can mean access rights, the right to deploy forces, the right to put sensors there, logistics rights, setting the standards for how things operate. You don't need to own the house, just hold the keys to the important rooms. Trump says America needs Greenland. Doesn't mean they'll do literally anything to get it. That might just be his negotiating style. Start with the craziest demand. Make the other side sweat. Then settle for something they can actually accept. That's always been Trump, the businessman approach. And now, President Trump, politician Trump, is using the same playbook. Even if America can't buy Greenland, it's just a failed real estate deal. But militarily, if the goal is controlling the Arctic reaction chain, there are plenty of other ways to get there. The easiest path politically is control through agreements and capability. Expand legitimate military presence by working with Denmark and Greenland's government. Upgrade existing bases. Get more access to ports, airports, infrastructure. Make Greenland a NATO anchor in the Arctic. What this does is turn Greenland into an extension of the U.S. NATO defense system without changing who officially owns it. Europeans see it as defense cooperation. The Pentagon gets what it really wants. Here's a practical military truth. What matters isn't who owns the land. What matters is who gets to put what on that land and run it their way. America can do this by funding and setting up a modern Arctic sensor network. Better early warning radar, infrared sensors to catch missile launches, signal collection stations, tracking capability for objects in space and on the sea, high-speed data links. Once America puts their eyes and ears there and hooks them into their command network, they've got the most important part of Greenland militarily, even if the legal status doesn't change at all. Another approach, trade money and technology and infrastructure for long-term access and control. The same thing China does all the time. Greenland needs development, infrastructure, energy, communications, ports, airports, healthcare, schools, emergency services that work in freezing conditions. America could come in with a big, long-term investment package tied to security conditions. Western technical standards, clean telecom systems, ports and airports that work from military logistics, and most important, keeping China out of sensitive infrastructure. This works because it hits China's weak spot. They don't need to fire a shot. Just touching infrastructure gives them influence. If America wants to stop that, they gotta get there first with money and standards. Looking ahead, America has another powerful option, less dramatic than buying or invading. Shape Greenland's political future toward a security partnership with the US. Greenland's autonomous. Long-term, there's always a chance they push for more independence. America doesn't have to openly encourage that, but they can prepare for it. If someday Greenland wants to step away from Denmark, the US could offer some kind of special partnership. Joint defense, shared standards, shared presence. Greenland gets economic and security benefits. America gets guaranteed access. That's how you get Greenland without changing sovereignty. Instead of buying it, you lock in the future choice. There's also building up the surrounding area. Strengthened presence in Iceland, Norway, Canada, all the North Atlantic gateway spots. Coordinate anti-sub operations and shipping surveillance. Combine commercial and military satellites for a fuller picture. This doesn't replace Greenland, but it reduces risk if Greenland can't be upgraded fast enough. Network thinking instead of relying on one spot. Though honestly, Greenland's still the perfect place for sensors and logistics. The surrounding belt is backup, not replacement. Last resort. Finally, there's the least dramatic option. Stop focusing on ownership. Focus on eliminating uncertainty and reducing risk. America doesn't need to own Greenland. They just need to be sure it won't become a gray zone, won't get infiltrated, won't lack defenses. Will always be available for early warning, command and control, and logistics when a crisis hits. If they can lock in those four things through defense agreements, infrastructure investment, NATO standards, and rotating forces, then militarily, Washington's got Greenland in the way that actually matters, without the political explosion of trying to buy it or take it by force. Way less controversy. Can you see it? You don't need to conquer a place to control it. There are soft paths, soft power. And I'm pretty sure the people running things in Washington understand this perfectly well. They keep talking about peace through strength. So no, I don't think they're going to start a war to grab Greenland from Denmark. That would be slapping an ally in the face, breaking the alliance. There'll be negotiations instead. But like I said, Trump puts people in really tough spots at the negotiating table, squeezes them until they can barely breathe, makes them feel like there's no way out. Then he offers a lighter option, an exit, a way back, something they can live with. That's how businessman Donald Trump always operated. And now, President Donald Trump is doing the same thing. Even if America never buys Greenland, so what? Failed real estate deal. But in military terms, if the goal is controlling the Arctic chain, there are lots of quieter ways to get there, like we just went through. Those paths aren't loud, but that's exactly what great powers use to turn a place they can't own into a place they can't lose. And I think America's going to take one of those paths. All right, that's it for today's show. Drop your thoughts in the comments. This is Edward Langford, signing off. See you next time.